He kissed me on our wedding day, and in that same week, he had already opened a folder on his laptop named Her Money Plan. I found that folder 11 months later, and by then he thought he had already won. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. I was a 31-year-old woman who inherited $800,000 from my grandmother. I was quiet, careful with money, and I believed in love more than I believed in logic. I thought I found my person. I was wrong. He didn't marry me. He invested in me, like I was a stock he was waiting to cash out. And when he finally made his move to take everything I had, I was already 3 steps ahead of him. This is the story of how a man tried to marry his way into a fortune, and how I quietly, legally, and completely took it all back. Stay until the end, because the final twist is something even I didn't see coming. Let me take you back to the beginning. 2 years before the wedding, I lost my grandmother. She raised me after my parents passed away when I was young. She was the only real family I had, and when she passed, she left me almost everything: her savings, her small property, and a life insurance payout. I was suddenly a woman with money I never asked for, and with that money came a strange kind of loneliness. I stopped trusting people's intentions. Every compliment felt like it had a price tag attached. Then I met him. He worked in marketing. Not extremely wealthy, not poor either, just comfortable. He drove a decent car, lived in a decent apartment, and always seemed to have big plans that were somehow always a few months away from happening. Looking back now, I can see all the small warning signs. But at the time, love has a way of turning red flags into he's just going through a rough patch. He never asked me directly about my money. That's what made him dangerous. He was smart enough to let other people ask for him. Friends would casually mention my inheritance in conversations. He would sit there quietly, nodding, pretending he wasn't listening closely. But he was. 6 months into dating, he told me he loved me for the first time. 8 months in, he was talking about marriage. By month 10, we were engaged. Everyone around me said it was fast. My best friend, Sarah, pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget. He fell in love with you awfully fast for someone who found out about your inheritance in week 2. I brushed it off. I told her she didn't understand real love. I told her some people just know. I was the one who didn't understand. Let's slow down here because I want you to understand exactly how this kind of manipulation works. If you've ever wondered how someone can fake love for years, this section will explain it. People who marry for money rarely do anything obvious. They don't ask, "How much do you have?" on the first date. Instead, they do something far more effective. They make themselves indispensable. He learned my love language before I even knew what that meant. I love acts of service, so he was always helping. He fixed things around my apartment. He handled paperwork I didn't want to deal with. He offered to take some stress off my plate by managing bills. Slowly, without me realizing it, he was inserting himself into my finances one small favor at a time. He also mirrored my values perfectly. I care about family, so he talked about wanting a big family one day. I care about honesty, so he made a big show of always telling the truth, even about small, unnecessary things, a technique to build trust quickly. I valued independence, so he constantly told me how much he admired that I didn't need anyone. It's a strange trick, isn't it? Telling someone you love their independence while quietly working to make them dependent on you. After the wedding, the real shift began. It was subtle at first. He suggested we combine our finances to make things simpler as a married couple. He suggested adding his name to the deed of the property my grandmother left me, saying it was what married couples do. He suggested I invest a portion of my inheritance into a business he wanted to start, promising it would double our future. Every suggestion sounded reasonable on its own, but together they formed a pattern of slowly transferring control of my money into his hands. I said yes to some of it, not all. Something in me, some quiet, stubborn voice, kept whispering, "Wait." That whisper saved me. The discovery. It was a random Tuesday evening. He was in the shower, and his laptop was open on the kitchen table. I wasn't snooping. I was just going to check the weather for the next day. But a folder caught my eye on his desktop. It was named simply, her money plan. My stomach dropped before my mind even processed what I was seeing. I opened it. Inside were documents. Spreadsheets tracking my exact inheritance amount, my property value, my monthly income. There were notes, actual written notes, outlining a timeline. Phrases like convince her to add my name to the house by year 2 and suggest joint investment account by month 18 and the one that broke something inside me. Divorce settlement potential if things don't work out. Consult lawyer. He wasn't planning our future. He was planning my downfall with spreadsheets and deadlines like I was a business project. I sat there frozen. I heard the shower turn off. I closed the laptop and walked into the bedroom, my hands shaking, my mind racing. That night, I didn't confront him. I smiled. I made dinner. I let him kiss me goodnight. Because here's something I learned in that single moment. When someone shows you their true plan, the worst thing you can do is react emotionally right away. The smartest thing you can do is get quiet, get informed, and get prepared. Getting smart. The next morning, after he left for work, I did something I should have done long before the wedding. I called a lawyer who specialized in family and financial law. I explained everything, the inheritance, the property still legally under my name only, the joint accounts we had opened, and what I had discovered on his laptop. The lawyer told me something that changed everything, because the property and the majority of my inheritance were still solely in my name, and because we had not yet fully merged our finances the way he wanted, I was in a much stronger position than I realized. She advised me to do 3 things. First, stop any further merging of finances immediately, without raising suspicion. I told him the joint investment account idea needed a little more research before we moved forward, a delay tactic, not a refusal. Third, and most importantly, protect what was still fully mine. She helped me place the property and remaining inheritance into a properly structured trust, completely legal, completely within my rights, since it was inherited money, not marital income. This wasn't revenge yet. This was simply protection. But it was the foundation for everything that came next. Playing the long game. For the next several weeks, I played a role. I acted like the same loving, slightly naive wife he had grown used to. He kept pushing, gently but persistently, for the joint account. I kept giving soft, believable reasons for delay. Let's wait until after the holidays. I want to talk to a financial advisor first. Let's focus on us instead of money right now. Each time, he'd nod, smile, and say something like, "Of course, no rush. I just want us to be a real team." A real team. The irony of that phrase still makes me shake my head. Meanwhile, I was building my case. My lawyer explained that if this ever went to divorce, the Her Money Plan folder, along with my documented pattern of his requests, would paint a very clear picture of intent, especially if paired with financial records showing he had contributed very little to our shared expenses, while consistently pushing to access money that wasn't his. I also started paying closer attention to his own finances, which he had always kept somewhat vague. Through simple observation, mail, casual conversations, a slip up here and there, I learned he had significant credit card debt he never mentioned before the wedding. Suddenly, his eagerness to combine finances made even more sense. It wasn't just about my inheritance. It was also about erasing his own financial mess using my money. The trigger. About 4 months after I found the folder, he made his boldest move yet. He came home one evening with paperwork for a business loan. He wanted to use our house, the one legally still in my name, as collateral. He needed my signature. This was the moment. The moment where his plan required my direct, documented participation. I asked him calmly, "What happens if the business fails? What happens to the house?" He brushed it off with practiced ease. "It won't fail. And even if something happens, we're married, we're a team, we'll figure it out together." I told him I needed a few days to think about it. That night, I called my lawyer. She told me clearly, "This is your opportunity. If he's willing to push you toward risking your inherited property for his business, and you have documentation showing this pattern of financial pressure since early in the relationship, you have what you need to protect yourself completely and separate from him on your terms." Part 5. Taking it back. I want to be clear about something. This wasn't about hatred. It wasn't about screaming matches or dramatic confrontations. Real justice, the kind that actually works, is quiet, legal, and complete. I met with my lawyer one final time before making my move. Together, we prepared everything: the trust protecting my inherited assets, documentation of his financial requests and behavior patterns, proof of his undisclosed debt, and a clear paper trail showing that at no point had I willingly signed away control of my inheritance. Then I filed for divorce. He was stunned. He tried the charm first, reminding me of our wedding day, our team, our future. When that didn't work, he became angry, accusing me of being cold, of never really loving him. But here's what he didn't expect. Because my inheritance had never been fully merged into our marital assets, because it was protected in a trust, and because I had clear documentation of his intentions and financial pressure tactics, the settlement process was remarkably clean. He walked away with nothing extra. No portion of my inheritance. No claim on the property my grandmother left me. His own debt remained entirely his own responsibility. The man who had a spreadsheet planning to slowly take my fortune walked out of that marriage with exactly what he brought into it. Nothing more. The aftermath. A few months after the divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that his business venture, the one he wanted to fund using my house as collateral, collapsed within a year. Without my money to fall back on, he was left dealing with the consequences of decisions he had made entirely on his own. I won't pretend I didn't feel something when I heard that. Not joy exactly. More like quiet confirmation that I had made the right choice, at the right time, for the right reasons. I kept my grandmother's property. I kept my inheritance. And more importantly, I kept my self-respect. Looking back, here's what I want you to take from this story. Love should never require you to ignore your instincts. That quiet voice inside me, the one that kept saying wait before signing anything, was the most valuable thing I had in this entire situation. Protecting yourself financially isn't unromantic. It isn't cold. It isn't a lack of trust. It's simply wisdom. A person who truly loves you will never be offended by boundaries, documentation, or caution. Only someone with something to hide will push against those things. I also learned that revenge doesn't have to be loud. The most powerful response to betrayal is often silence, patience, and preparation. I didn't scream. I didn't sabotage him publicly. I simply protected what was mine, followed the law, and let the truth speak for itself in the end. If there's one lesson from my story, it's this: pay attention to actions, not just words. He said he loved me 100 times, but his spreadsheet said something very different. Trust what people show you, not just what they tell you. So that's my story. How a man married me hoping to slowly take my inheritance, and how I quietly, legally, and completely took it all back. If you're going through something similar right now, trust your instincts, protect your assets, and never feel guilty for choosing yourself. You deserve a love that adds to your life, not one that's secretly planning to take it away. If this story meant something to you, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life stories like this one every week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.